Most people never have enough intention or intensity or velocity in the direction of the things they desire to have to even have a point of no return. And so what we have to do is we have to get started. And then once we get started, we have to move forward with vim and vigor like there's no tomorrow. In this video, I am going to help so many people who have been getting ready to get ready and not gotten started yet. What I'm about to share with you is a master key. It will unlock your stuckness if you will let it, even if you've been stuck for weeks, months, years, or even decades. If you will apply what I'm about to show you, it will change your life for the rest of your life. I'm going to talk to you today about this. Start before you're ready. Because the start stops most people. This is how not to let the start stop you. I talk to people and they're still getting ready 3 years later. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I'm going to write a book one day. Let one day be today. I'm going to start my business eventually. No, start your business now. And so I was thinking, why does this phenomenon exist? Why is it that people have so much internal resistance to starting? And I was thinking about it when I woke up this morning. My alarm clock went off at 5 o'clock, as it always does. It won't tomorrow, though. I'm sleeping until 7 tomorrow. But it went off at 5 a.m. And I know what I'm supposed to do. Get up. My mind wanted to get up. My body didn't want to get up. Get dressed. Go out on the patio. It's 60 degrees in your shorts and your tank top, and get on that assault bike and let it assault you for 30 minutes. And thinking about it, everything inside of me was saying, but why? And I got up. And I got dressed and I went outside and I turned on the patio lights. I got on my assault bike and I put those headphones in my ear and I turned on my playlist for riding the bike, and I rode and panted and huffed and puffed and sweated and all the rest. And guess what? It was way worse thinking about it before I got started than it was experiencing it after I got started. Every time I get in my cold plunge, my body says, you are you're a nut. What are you doing? And I have all of this resistance physically. And then I get in it. And then I listen to this song that's exactly 5 minutes, because I stay in there 5 minutes. And when the song's over, I'm like, oh, it's over already? The anxiety over how it's going to be feels so much worse than the actual experience of what? Most anything. And I thought to myself, why do we do that? Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we take things that are so good and have so much potential and then have all this internal resistance and we lock down? Why do we do it? Here's why. Because we have anxiety over past pain. We have anxiety over the future activity based on the memory of a past pain. What does that mean? Well, a couple things. One, people don't realize our body and our mind are very good at remembering pain. In fact, our body and our mind are so good at remembering pain that we will do more to avoid pain most times than we will to gain pleasure. And so when we think about doing the thing, getting something started, the anxiety that builds up inside of us when we're thinking about getting something started, it exists for two reasons. One, we remember the past pain. And two, we're either consciously or unconsciously aware of the fact that disruption always follows intention. So when you start to do something good, the first thing that shows up is something hard. And so we're resisting having to get to our second win. Once we get to our second win, they have a thing called a runner's high, right? And you get to a certain point, you feel like you're going to die. And then once you get past that point, you feel like you're going to live forever, right? But most people, in most of the things that matter in their life, they don't go long enough or far enough or fast enough to break through to that runner's high. I don't know if any of you have ever taken flying lessons, but if you haven't, I promise you it's so much. You would love it. There's something about flying an airplane. It's just mind blowing. But my flight instructor was sharing with me this concept called the point of no return. That doesn't sound very fun in an airplane, does it? Right, but it is. You're right. So you have a runway. We're going to do the aerial view. Okay, you have a runway, and on the tarmac you have an airplane. Okay, has a propeller on. Okay, so the airplane is going to go down the runway, and it has to get its speed up to a certain speed. And what the speed is going to be determined by how heavy the plane is, right? Let's just say it's 140 miles an hour. It needs to be going 140 miles an hour to take off. You're in a little Cessna 172. You need to be going 140 miles an hour to take off. There's this imaginary place in the runway called the point of no return. You have to be going, once you get past this, if you are going at a speed where you can take off, once you get to this point, it doesn't matter what happens. You're either going to take off or you're going to die. Like you're going to take off or you're going to, not die, but you're going to take off or you're going to crash. Like like once you get here, once the plane gets here, you can't start putting on the brakes. It's too late. So once you get here, you have to take off. Unless you're not going fast enough when you get there. What does that mean? That means you have to have enough velocity, enough speed when you get to the place where you break through in order to break through. Because if you just inch down the runway at 5 miles an hour, this is not the point of no return. It's just another spot on the runway. You say, Myron, what's your point? My point is most people never have enough intention or intensity or velocity in the direction of the things they desire to have to even have a point of no return. And so what we have to do is we have to get started. And then once we get started, we have to move forward with vim and vigor like there's no tomorrow, like there's no turning back. You cannot inch your way up to and through success. It doesn't happen like that. You're either all in or you're all out. Okay? So the reason we resist getting started is because we have these memories of things we attempted in the past. But remember this now. Correlation does not equal causation. You've attempted things in the past, they didn't work. So you assume that when you attempt things, they don't work. But maybe the reason the thing that you attempted in the past didn't work, the real reason is because you had attempted it in a way where the principles you were applying were not stronger than the principles that you were working against. Right? Okay, here's what I mean. So gravity is real. Right? And gravity is a force of nature, and what goes up must come down. But gravity is not so strong that flying is impossible. Are y'all tracking? And so how can a 747, let's just take a 747, fully loaded, fuel, passengers, luggage. It weighs, anybody want to guess? A lot. It weighs 987,000 pounds. A little 757, fully loaded with passengers and fuel, weighs 250,000 pounds. A 757, 250,000 pounds. 250,000 pounds like 40,000 feet in the air going 500 miles an hour. Everything is wrong with this picture. Well, how can that be? But how can something that heavy be that high and moving that fast? Because there are principles that are greater than the principle of gravity and weight and drag and resistance. What are those principles? Thrust and lift and momentum. So, like, if you realized that if you're applying a principle and getting started in something that's greater than the principle that's stopping you, the thing that's stopping you can't stop you anymore. That's what I say. I say it backwards one time for the people in the back row. Wow. Right. Okay. So we have anxiety over past pain. Now, if you understand, people think they have fear of the future. They have fear of failure, but there's no such thing. There's no such thing as fear of failure. It does not exist. They have anxiety over failure, but they don't fear failure. Anxiety and failure are doppelgangers. They look alike, but they're not the same. They're not even twins. They ain't even in the same family. So, but they create the same physical reaction in our body. Fear is caution over a real and present danger. I remember one time, and I know y'all heard me tell the story before, but I'm going to tell it again for those who haven't heard. If this is your first time watching this channel, congratulations, you get to hear the story for the first time. I was riding my Segway at the golf course, and because it's not a good idea to drive your car and text, I was riding my Segway and looking at Instagram. That makes sense. Wait a minute. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Fear of failure. There's no such thing. Why am I riding this? Guess what? Why am I riding this Segway? What's looking at Instagram? This doesn't make sense. I had got a wake-up call. You know what the wake-up call was? I came around the corner from hole number 4, on my way to hole number 5, par 5. The comfort station on the right side. And I looked up from Instagram, and there was a 12 to 15 foot alligator laying across the cart path. My heart started palpitating. If I wouldn't have looked up, I'd have ran in that alligator. Both of us would have had a very bad day. Right? When I looked up and saw that alligator, I did not have anxiety. I had fear. Now, what's the difference between fear and anxiety? The difference between fear and anxiety is fear is caution over a real and present danger. Anxiety is caution over a future imagined danger. If fear is caution over a real and present danger, if there is no real and present danger, there can be no fear. Did you hear what I just said? So failing is not dangerous. Like you perceiving that you're going to fail at something is not dangerous. It's just something that's undesirable. There's a difference between danger and undesirable. So what happens is we think that we have fear of failure. We think we have fear of success. We think we have fear of rejection. None of those things are fear. They're anxiety. Why? Because anxiety is not caution over a real and present danger. Anxiety is caution over a future imagined danger. So when I'm imagining an unfavorable outcome in the future, I'm having a physical reaction in my body in the present. That's what anxiety is. By the way, if I see a 15-foot alligator laying across the cart path and I look up just in time to keep from hitting it, the experience I have in my body is the same experience people have in their body when they're expecting an unfavorable outcome in the future and they have a panic attack. Your head sweats, your heart palpitates, your breathing is shallow, right? Why? Because anxiety seems like, feels like, and creates the same reaction in our body as fear, but it's not fear. Why? Because we made the whole thing up in our mind. We're watching a mental movie. We're watching a mental horror movie about our future in our minds. Your mind is so much more powerful than you know, and if you learn how to empower your mind instead of disempowering your mind, it'll change change the game for you. So what's happening? Anxiety over past pain. What does that mean? That means I'm taking pain from the past, projecting it on the screen of my future, and then stepping on my brakes in the present so I don't re-experience that pain. How many of y'all tracking?
Yeah.
That's why. This is one of the reasons why people don't start. But not only anxiety over past pain, but ambiguity over potential pleasure. What does that mean? It means it's easier for us to see clearly the pain of something not working than it is for us to feel the pleasure of it potentially working. Now, why is it so easy for us to imagine negativity and it's so hard for us to imagine positivity? Why is it so easy for us to imagine something not working, so hard for us to imagine it working? Because most of our lives, if we've ever attempted anything, we've had enough things not work to know what that feels like and to remember it very vividly. It's something about something being painful for you, it just kind of amplifies that experience. And so what happens is I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I don't want to go through that again. I don't even know I'm thinking that. Like, I'm thinking on a subconscious level. But my automatic mind is talking me out of taking the action. And so what happens is, because I can see more clearly the thing not working than I can see it clearly working, I don't do it. I get ready to do it. Because then at least I can tell people I'm working on it. And then at least I can deceive myself into thinking that I'm working on it. Am I telling the truth? And so this is what I did. I almost forgot that I did this. This is what I did. Back when I was still riding on the back of Southwest Airlines, right? Back of the plane at Southwest Airlines, I would sit down and I would write out what a perfect day in the life of Myron Golden would look like. And I would write it like a movie script. I would describe it. So that I would describe what I was seeing. I would describe what I was feeling. I would describe who I was with. I would describe how that was making me feel. Why? Because I was creating a mental movie in my imagination that I could see clearly enough that it would draw me towards it, like I saw the mental movies of the pain of the past that are moving me away from even being willing to endeavor to do it again. Is this making sense? So can I tell you some? Well, before I do, I'm going to tell you one other thing, and then I'm going to share something with you. Some things. This is some reasons why I know personally that starting before you're ready is almost always a good idea. And it's not really starting before you're ready, because you're not really starting before you're ready. You're starting before you think you're ready. But I'm here to tell you, you're ready before you know you're ready. Sometimes we need somebody who knows more than we know, who've been where we'd like to go, to tell us that we're ready, even though we feel like we're not. So, one of the things that you have to do is you have to learn a concept that I call thought replacement. Okay? Because we have to stop watching, conjuring up past memories and imagining that's going to be our future outcome. We have to stop doing that. But you can't just stop doing that. You have to replace it with something. You can't just eject that movie and leave the mental VCR empty. You have to put something in it, right? And so describing what you want it to look like, and then, like, even if you have to close your eyes, I'm not talking about visualization. Maybe I am talking about visualization. I don't know. I'm just talking about, you have to get to the place in your life where you can see more clearly it working than you can not see it not working. And so if anxiety has the ability to stop us in our tracks, and it does. Anticipation. Oh, by the way, look, I used the word anxiety. I didn't define it. I told you what it does, right? I told you that anxiety is caution over a future imagined danger. But let me tell you what anxiety causes us to do. Anxiety causes us to waste present energy on a future outcome that's undesirable to us in the present. Have you ever heard the phrase, worrying about something makes it happen? This is why. Because worrying about something makes it happen, because when I'm worried about it, when I have anxiety over it, I'm wasting the energy I could use to fix it, worrying about it. So even if I get a good idea to fix it, I don't have enough energy left to implement that activity that would fix it. So it's a perpetual trap. That's why Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. What is he saying? Stop wasting today's energy worrying about tomorrow's problems. Okay. So here's what we have to here's what we must learn how to discipline ourselves to do in the moment when we're feeling the anxiety. First of all, we got to recognize that it's anxiety. That hesitation, that internal resistance that we're feeling for getting started, we have to recognize that that is at least the result of anxiety. It's the result of me clearly seeing that this is not going to work. I wouldn't say it like that unless I took inventory of my thoughts and I saw that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm not saying I'm seeing clearly this is not going to work. I'm asking a question that demands a negative answer. The question that I'm asking when I have anxiety. This is a surefire indicator you have anxiety. When you're asking the question, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work is a question that shows you that you have anxiety. Because if you ask what if it doesn't work, what is your mind going to show you? It's going to show you all the things that happen if it doesn't work. What if you learn to ask yourself a better question? What if you learn to ask yourself a question that builds anticipation, which is the opposite of anxiety? And you said, man, how awesome is this going to be when it works? Instead of what if it doesn't work? Like literally just that question can change the game. So here's what you have to do. Oh, I told you what anxiety is. Let me tell you what the opposite is. The opposite is anticipation. What's anticipation? Anticipation is the energy I get when the outcome I expect is desirable to me. Let me say it again. Anticipation is the energy I get when the outcome I expect is desirable to me. It's like when you knew what you were getting for Christmas, you couldn't sleep on Christmas Eve. Why? Because your expectation of the outcomes of the next day energized you so much that you couldn't sleep. You ever get a good idea before you go to bed? Isn't that like the worst thing ever? Right? You can't sleep. Right? You're up all night because you got an idea right before you're going to sleep. And now your brain's your brain's racing. Okay. So if that's the case, if anxiety robs you of energy and anticipation fuels you with energy, the thing that I've got to learn how to do is I must learn to replace the thought that causes the anxious apprehension of the outcome I don't desire. Anxious. I'm worried. Apprehension. I stop. Like when we're concerned about something, even if we proceed how? With caution. Right? So apprehension, what does apprehension mean? It means stop. If there's a criminal on the loose and they say, we've apprehended him, what does that mean? We stopped him. Right? So replacing the anxious apprehension of the outcome I don't desire with the joyful anticipation of the outcome I do desire. And I have to do that in real time. It's easy for me to say I'm going to do it when the anxiety is not present. It requires much more intention and discipline to do it when the anxiety is there. Am I tracking? Okay, want to make sure I ain't speaking in code now. But clearly you are just letting it marinate and you're letting it settle in. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I didn't leave anybody. So I think about so many things that I did that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I said, well, I'm going to do this. And it's kind of like accomplishment is kind of like in itself a transformation. And what are the stages of transformation? Awareness, intention, decision, discipline, recognition, celebration. Those are the stages of transformation. Well, accomplishment is the same thing. Now watch what happens. I decided, I got invited to speak at a conference. I was broke. Let me see, what year was this? 2001. I was broke as a joke and ready to choke. I got invited to speak at a conference in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was allowed to make an offer. but I didn't have a duplicator. I didn't have a way to make tapes. We sold tapes back then, like cassette tapes. Y'all remember cassette tapes? Those things Abraham Lincoln used to listen to. Okay, so so we used to sell our programs on cassette tapes, right? And so there was a cassette duplication company in Jacksonville, Florida that I used, because I used to live in Jacksonville, but now I lived in Pennsylvania, so I didn't have anybody to make my tapes. So I placed an order for this company in Jacksonville to make my tapes. It was a $1,500 order. $1,500 for me back then was a lot of, back in 2001 was a lot of money. And so I didn't have enough money for a plane ticket to fly to Jacksonville and then fly to Birmingham. So I left Thursday. They didn't let me know they wanted me to speak until Thursday. And I was supposed to speak on Saturday. So I left Thursday, and now I got to go to Jacksonville and pick up these tapes, right? And so I drive to Jacksonville from Pennsylvania. I leave Thursday afternoon. I drive all night. I take a nap, like at a rest area or something, for a couple of hours. Then I get to Jacksonville. I go pick up my tapes, and they had been doing business with me for years, so they would let me pay them later, right? So then I drove 9 hours that day to Birmingham, Alabama, to get to Birmingham that night. And then I was supposed to speak Saturday morning. Well, my coach was there. He was speaking also. And I showed him my order form that I was going to use. He said, well, I wouldn't do it that way. I'd do it this way. But you can do it however you want to. I said, I want to do it the way you do it. I ain't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I ain't, right? So, cool. So I had already printed like 600 order forms. I threw them all in the trash. Went back to Kinko's before it was FedEx office, printed 600 more, because I'm going to speak to 700 people, right? I'm going to do exactly what Jerry told me to do. So then I ended up not speaking. I was like, oh, it's going to be later. Then finally, the next to the last person on Sunday morning before the conference ends, most of the people have already gone home, right? I'm speaking to about 135 people. And so I do my offer. And before I did it, I called my family. I called my wife, I called my brothers, I called my mom, I called everybody who knew me. Pray for me. I'm about to do this thing Jerry told me to do, and I don't know if it's going to work. I wasn't nervous. I was scared. Right? And I got up and I did my offer, and I did everything Jerry told me to do, exactly how he told me to do it. There was a lady on the front row, right about where you are, Breezy. Lady on the front row. I got down to the end of the offer. It was $147. She said, what? What? She jumped up out of her chair and ran to the back, and people started following her. It was almost everything that I could do. It took like every ounce of my constitution to keep from breaking out into hysterical laughter. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And then when the dust settled, I did $5,900 in sales in 45 minutes. That's the most money in the shortest amount of time I had ever made in my life. I was like, that was crazy. That was crazy. Anyway, that whole thing didn't make sense, but it worked. And then somebody booked me from that event to speak at their event 2 weeks later, and somebody booked me a month later to speak at their event. And then I did $6,600 at the one in Cleveland, $8,800 at the one in Baltimore. I'm like, this is crazy. None of that would have happened if I would have waited until I was ready to do it. Right? It didn't make any sense. I remember when I used to be in multi-level marketing, and we bought these third-party validation newspapers. They were called Health News because I sold nutritional supplements, Health News. And they had Health News on antioxidants, grapeseed extract, blah, 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 right? And oligomeric proanthocyanidins and all this other stuff, right? And I'm like learning all the technical gobbledygook, and I would buy 100 papers for $50 so that people could see this health newspaper says that this stuff that I'm selling works, right? It was a third-party validation piece. I was buying 100 newspapers for $50. And I was telling other people in my team to buy 100 newspapers for $50. I'm like, I'm going to make a newspaper. Now you got to understand, I know nothing about graphic design. I know nothing about newspaper. I couldn't pass a 9th grade grammar test to save my grandmother. But I'm going to start a newspaper. I don't even, so what do? Well, I know newspapers are printed. So I started where I knew to start. I picked up my phone. I started calling printing companies. This is, anyway, when I lived in Jacksonville, I started calling printing companies. I said, hey, I want to get a newspaper printed. Do you guys print newspapers? No. Do you guys print newspapers? No. Do you guys print newspapers? No. Do you guys print newspapers? Guy says, no, we don't print newspapers. In order to print newspapers, you need a printing company that has a web press. Like Spider-Man spins a web press. I'm like, what's a web press? I knew nothing. I wasn't ill prepared. I was completely unprepared with the exception of one thing. I had made a decision I'm going to start a newspaper. Because if this other company is selling all these newspapers to me and thousands of other people, I can write a newspaper and sell thousands of them. I know I can do that. So I just started figuring out the pieces. So I said, do you have a web press? He said, no, but there's a company in Jacksonville that has a web press. It's so-and-so printing. I don't remember the name of them, but I called them. Hey, I heard you guys have a web press. You can print newspapers. Yeah. If I want to do a 4-page kind of newspaper and I can bring it to you and show you what it's called, what it looks like if you want me to, and then you can tell me whether y'all print them. Okay, come tomorrow. Okay, cool. Went the next day. I showed them the newspaper. They said, oh, that's just a 4-page tabloid. That's easy. It's easy for you. Cool. So if I design this and I get it to you, you'll print it for me. How much will you charge me? Are you ready for this? 1.9 cents a piece. 1.9 cents, which means if I want to get 100 printed, it would cost me $19. If I want to get 1,000 printed, it cost me $190. If I want to get 10,000 printed, it only cost me $1,900 to print 10,000 papers that I can sell for 50 cents a piece. Child, say less, do more. Okay, so I said, okay, cool. So I go home and I open up Microsoft Word. And it doesn't make sense because they don't have the dimensions of this paper. So I called the printing company. I said, hey, I'm using Microsoft Word and to write my newspaper articles, but it doesn't seem to work. They said, no, you need to either use Quark Express or you need to use Adobe Illustrator. Well, I'm like, I have Adobe Illustrator. I'll use Adobe Illustrator. Thank you. So I open up Adobe Illustrator because I think Adobe Illustrator is going to work like Microsoft Word. But it's nothing like Microsoft Word. Like, I literally couldn't figure out how to put a word on the page. So guess what I did? I called the printing company. I said, I don't have Quark Express, but I have Adobe Illustrator. Do you have somebody there who can show me how it works? Sure, come in tomorrow. Went in the next day, lady spent like 3 hours showing me how Adobe Illustrator worked. So I went back home, I designed my newspaper. I'm like, okay, so here's what I need. I need a headliner. That year, Mark Victor Hansen and Robert G. Allen came out with the book, The 1 Minute Millionaire. So I called their office and I said, my name is Myron Golden. I am the editor-in-chief of the Financial Freedom News. If Bob and Mark will let me do an interview with them, I will give them an advertorial. I didn't call it an advertorial because I didn't know that's what it's called, but I'll do a story about their book in my paper that we sell as a third-party validation piece to network marketing companies, and thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people will hear about their book. Okay, well, we'll set you up with a call with Mark and Bob. They sent me a press kit with a signed book, a signed photograph of Mark Victor Hansen and Robert G. Allen, and then booked. And so, and back, remember when we used to have phones that had cords that were connected to the wall? Well, I had this device because I did conference calls. I had this device where I could record phone calls that was plugged into my phone. So I had set up a time for them to call. We called, we got on the call, I interviewed them, and I wrote the article based on the interview. Now, I did the article based on Robert G. Allen, because he was also a person who did network marketing from time to time, and everybody knew him from nothing down, multiple streams of income, and now the 1 Minute Millionaire. And so the first page was about Robert Allen. Is what I'm saying making sense? And what Robert Allen says about network marketing, because I was asking him questions about network marketing, like he gave me one of the best quotes ever. He said, one of the things I like about network marketing is residual income. He said, residual income is way better than linear income because residual income means every dollar you make, it has thousands and thousands of other little dollars following it. He said, but the only thing following linear income is another day of hard work, right? Wasn't that a great quote? And so I did this Robert Allen story on page 1. Page 2, I talked about network marketing and what it was, and then did a little advertorial for the 1 Minute Millionaire. And then on the next page, I talked about a particular network marketing company that I was doing, because I did this paper for many different network marketing companies. I did for the network marketing company. And then on the back page, I featured the leaders of that company so they would promote the newspaper to the people in their team, right? Now, I didn't know anything about making a newspaper, but I knew how to make that newspaper sell once I got it made. I literally sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of those newspapers. And if somebody bought one newspaper, it was $1. But if they bought 100, it was $50. No, if they bought 100, it was $50. If they bought 1,000, it was $350. So they only paid 35 cents a piece. And if they bought 10,000 or more, they paid 25 cents a piece. Oh, that's good for me. I only paid 1.9 cents a piece. I started a newspaper, sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of newspapers, even though when I started, I wasn't ready. You say, Myron, what are you saying? I'm saying there are some things, some lessons you can only learn while you're in the activity of doing the thing. You want to get it all mapped out so you know what all the steps are going to be before you get started. And life doesn't work like that. I like what Francesco said before we got started. Beginning is winning. I got started on a news. I published a newspaper, y'all. Okay, y'all ain't happy. Y'all, that wasn't good enough for y'all. Okay. I'm at my friend's house. He's the music minister at my brother's church. And he can sing and he can create music. He literally created some of the music on some Destiny Child's albums. The dude is like he's a musical savant. His name's Bernie Stevenson. So I'm at Bernie's house. We're just hanging out, chopping it up. He's like, oh, Myron, I like that thing you just said. He said, that has rhythm. I'm like, it's just words, bro. Oh, man, all words have rhythm. Isn't that what a musician would say? Right? And he says, you want me to play what I heard when you said that? I said, yeah. He goes to this little organ he's got at his house. He said, when you said da-da-da-da-da, I heard da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. I was like, you heard that when I said that. I said, that's wild. He said, man, music is easy for me. Words are hard for me. I said, well, words are easy for me. Music is hard for me. And as soon as I said that, the next thing that came out of my mouth is, we should do a project together. I said, why don't we produce an album? I'll write the words, you make the music. So I wrote the words. I literally, that night, I wrote a song. I don't remember which one I wrote first, but I think it was Free in the Land of the Free. And so I wrote the song. I sent it to him. I said, I want this to have a kind of a Yankee Doodle sound. And so it starts out with some drums. And like I sent him that. The next morning, he sent me back a song. It wasn't mastered, but it sounded good. Like, that's crazy. The next day, I wrote 2 more songs, sent them to him. So, The Challenge to Succeed, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. Sent them to him. Next, he sends them back. We got 8 songs. I got down to 7 songs. I was exhausted. So I called my brother Mark. Mark, you're good with words, bro. You're like, write a song. I want a song called The Challenge to Succeed. No, In It to Win It. In It to Win It. So Mark writes In It to Win It, send it to Bernie. So now we got 8 songs. So then we got all the songs are done. Now we got to get it mastered. We got to go to a studio and have an engineer make sure that all of the sounds are at the right volume and the right timing and all this other stuff. That takes a long time. And so he's got all these musical tracks with all these different vocal tracks and all these different instrumental tracks. And I'm like, And so I'm going because I just want to see the process. I didn't realize they're night owls. I'm not a night owl. I'm a morning glory. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm over there asleep on the floor in the studio while they're mastering stuff. From the time Bernie and I had that original conversation to the time we have duplicated CDs for sale, and people were buying them. You know how long it took? What would you guess? 14 days. Why? Because I got started on it. Oh, by the way, I've sold thousands and thousands and thousands of those CDs. Because I'd sell them at my conferences. Oh, we'll sell millions. Bernie, you about to get rich, bro. If you're watching this. We're going to sell millions of them. You know what I'm going to do? I thought of the perfect release of my album to my YouTube audience. We sold that, by the way, we sold those 8 songs for $20 a piece. I mean, for $20 per album. Oh, that's way better sharp stick in the eye. And guess what? We didn't have any production companies. We didn't have any record label to have. We had to give any of it to. Didn't have to perform. I'm gonna tell you something. What did we do? We started. I can tell you story after story after story after story after story after story that I just started something and I figured it out as I went along. I'm telling you, the start stops most people. Don't let the start stop you. So our affinity for what other people's opinions, but what will people think if I fail? What will people say? Who cares? Who cares what they say? They're going to say something anyway. Like, you don't have to fail. You can succeed. They're going to say something. Right? So that's why people don't start. Why would you be better off getting started before you're ready? Here's why. It will help you develop a mental model. Like, my mental model is very different from most people's mental model. I don't have to know everything before I do something. People are like, as soon as I know everything, I will do something. I'm like, I will do something so I can learn everything. And the reality is, you don't really get to know anything until you do something. Action is a great teacher. So it'll help you develop a mental model. It will also help you discover measurable metrics. What does that mean? It means, like, right now, you're just measuring your imagination against your imagination. Everything that you're contemplating while you're getting ready to get ready, the only place it exists is in your head. So you don't even know if it's real or not. But guess what? I started a newspaper and I went home and I started working on Microsoft Word. I wouldn't have had that Microsoft Word. I would not have known that I needed Illustrator if I wouldn't have gotten started. I wouldn't have learned how to use Illustrator if I wouldn't have gotten started. I wouldn't have known what a web press was if I wouldn't have gotten started. Many of the answers that are essential to your success, they are under a stone on the pathway of getting started. I get it. In your mind, getting started is a very dangerous thing. But I promise you, that's the only place it's dangerous. It'll help you discover measurable metrics, and it will help you deploy manageable methods. Everything feels overwhelming before you get started. I literally learned the next step by doing the last step. You know what it reminds me of? You know what Bible verse this reminds me of? If any man will do his will, he shall know the doctrine. What does that mean? God said, one of the reasons I'm not revealing my secrets to you is because you're not doing the ones I already revealed. If any man will do his will. You'd think it would say, Pastor Tom, you're pastor, you would think it would say, if any man will know the doctrine, he can do his will. It doesn't say that. If any man will do his will, he will know the doctrine. What does that mean? God's not in the habit of revealing secrets to the people who ignored the last 15 secrets he showed them. It will help you deploy manageable methods. You know what? Inch by inch, it's a cinch. But yard by yard, it's very hard. And see, what you're doing is you want to have the whole thing done before you do any of it. This is why people don't get started. Okay. So how do I start before I'm ready? Man, I want to start before I'm ready, but I'm not ready. So how do I start? It seems like such a conundrum, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like a crazy conundrum? Okay, here it is. You set your intention to succeed. I'm going to do this thing. Now, my recommendation is don't make it a goal. Don't put a time limit on it. I'm going to do this thing. Now, I don't care how long it takes. I don't care. When I became intentional about my YouTube channel, I was like, we're going to get to 1 million subscribers in 90 days. That, if I would have set that as a goal, I probably would have quit before I got to 1 million subscribers. But I set an intention. And here's my intention. I am going to publish a YouTube video every week for the next 10 years and see if I can get good. I can't control who subscribes. I can control if I get better. I can control if I do it consistently. Is what I'm saying making sense? And so, set your intention to succeed. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And I'm going to start doing X, Y, Z today. It's always now o'clock for me. What time is it? Now o'clock. You set your intention. Then you make a decision to start. A decision to start and a choice to start are not the same thing. Choose means to pick one. Decide comes from the Latin root de, which means of or from, side, which means to cut. When you decide, you cut yourself off from the possibility of any other thing. I am doing this. A decision is literally a covenant that you make with yourself. Do you know the word covenant means to cut and the word decide means to cut? But I'm making a covenant with myself. Now, a covenant is a promise on your honor. It's a promise based on love and respect. It is a promise that you stake your life on. If I don't keep my word to you, I want to die the death of mutilated animals. That's what a covenant is. So when you make a decision, when you make a real decision, and most people have very weak decision-making muscles because they don't make many decisions, but they make a lot of choices. When you make a decision, you realize that you would rather die keeping your word to yourself than live and break it. You ever think about the word confidence? What's the root word of confidence? What's the root word? Now that's confide. Confide. What does confide mean? To trust. So when you don't have confidence in yourself, you don't trust yourself. So here's the question. Why don't people trust themselves? Because they've broken their word to themselves so many times in the past, they can't believe a word they say. I don't trust me. I know I don't keep my word to me. Like, you don't understand how badly I wanted to go back to bed when my alarm clock went off at 5 o'clock this morning. Because 2 days ago, I woke up at 4:26 and couldn't go back to sleep. And so I made myself get up at 4:48. And then that night I was exhausted. The next day I was exhausted. Today it's still carrying over. When my alarm clock went off this morning, I was not feeling it. Tomorrow's a rest day. I don't have to hit the bike tomorrow. Tomorrow's Shabbat. I'm not riding that bike tomorrow. I'm going to sleep in. Let my body recover. But Sunday morning, we're going to be on that bike 5 o'clock in the morning. Right. Why? Because I'm not going to allow me to break my word to me. But Myron, you might die on the bike, but I will be on it when I die. Okay, y'all tracking. Set your intention to succeed. Make a decision to start. Set your intention. I'm going to do this. Make your decision, and then activate the discipline to stick with it. What is discipline? Discipline is doing what you're supposed